What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Today I thought I'd talk about what to do if your bingo is not scoring appropriately. I alluded to this in a previous episode, but you can very easily get confused when working with a bingo scoring problem. There are several components and many switches that the scoring runs through, and each need to be checked. But there's kind of a sequence or order of operations to go through in order to ensure that you're not just chasing your tail. So the most common problems would be a misaligned search disk. This can be determined by checking your manual for your game and ensuring that the search disk rivets are lined up appropriately to start. You don't want to have your machine set so that one of the rivets at rest is being conducted through the wipers, because when you land a ball in a particular hole, it's going to run a large amount of current through that switch for no reason. It may also prevent the search unit from turning if you have it set inappropriately like this. So checking this is vital. The search disk unit is typically marked with the at-rest position, and then the search disk itself also has a similar mark to show you where it should line up. And normally, the positions before and after the marked position are dead, in that they don't have anything. So you just have to make sure that it lines up pretty close. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect normally. Now the next thing to check would be your continuity from your wipers to the rings on the wiper arms. And you can check this by putting one end of your probe on the tab the wire goes into, and then the other end on the ring that you'll see about an inch in front of, or maybe half an inch in front of that. If you get continuity, great. You're good to go. If you don't get continuity, then you got to check and make sure that your wire is unbroken where it's connected to the switch tab. Or you need to suspect that perhaps there's some kind of damage to the wiper arm, and you'll need to take the wiper off in order to inspect it. But only go down that road if you absolutely have to. So, as you can imagine, making sure that the search disk is clean and appropriately lubed is important. Because it's metal on metal, you do want to use some form of lube, but you don't want to go crazy overboard. Now what I use is what Steve taught me, and that's a drop or two of the 3-in-1 oil from the red can, and you put it on your finger and then rub it around all the rivets on the disc. And that will help lubricate just a little, just enough to prevent the wiper arms from wearing down. So that's one potential area to check. The next area to check is probably the area that gives the most trouble. So once you've got the search disk set, it's pretty much set, unless a wire is cut from the rotation or some other odd coincidence. Then your most likely culprit is going to be the search index relay. And there are two switches attached to this, and the one on the bottom is the one that gives the most trouble. it has to be adjusted absolutely perfectly. And when I say that, I mean some switches are relatively easy to adjust. Most switches, I would say, are pretty simple. You just have to make sure that the large portion of the switch pushes on the small portion, and there's a little bit of over travel that allows for cleaning of the switch faces. But on this particular switch, it just barely moves, and so you have to make sure that the switch is gapped appropriately, and that gap is very, very, very small. I have pretty good eyes, but even I require some magnification to make sure that that switch is making and breaking appropriately. Once you've done this, there are another set of switches which govern replay countup. So if the machine is stopping the search, but it's not counting replays, then that's a whole nother set of switches to check. But that's relatively simple, and you would know that there was a problem with that if your game has a multiplay relay that allows for quarter play. So you get 5 plays for a quarter. Then you would know that that wasn't working because it wouldn't tick up the replays appropriately. If your game has a comeback key and you turn that on and it doesn't tick up the replays, then you know that there's a problem there as well. So that is probably the least likely area to have a problem, unless you're just bringing it home, just starting to shop it. Maybe a switch got out of adjustment either from moving it or from starting to clean switches and you knocked something out of place. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining me. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can find me online at foramusementonly.libsyn.com. You can contact me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, RSS, or find us online on Facebook. Thanks very much, and I'll talk to you next time.